King Cobra.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Urban Retrospect. I am your host for today. I'm Kendrick Cloud, straight out of Cleveland, Ohio. As always, I have my brothers with me. Today, we got my man Big G down in Cincinnati. We got Scott Jones in the greater Nashville area. My homeboy for 20 plus year, P-Dub. He doesn't realize that he ain't as cool as he think he is, but he's still my dog. You know what I'm saying? I got my old roommate, Dirty 30. You know what I'm saying? Straight out of College Park. You know what I'm saying? Which is not Atlanta. And then I got my boy Wes from Alabama. You know, I would say the home of the national champions, but not this year. You know what I'm saying? Is what it is. Is what it is. Is what it is. You can't win every year. So, three. Who the national champs? Three.
Them Georgia Bulldogs.
That's why we can't see nothing but that red in your shirt.
I'm gonna let
Superman G.
So on today,
also he's from where Herschel Walker played, the dumbest candidate facing the earth.
So on today's episode, we're still gonna we're gonna have our fun that we normally do. We're gonna have some serious discussion. Today's discussion is going to be about concealed carry and gun rights. This is very big going on right now in this country. We've had, unfortunately, some mass shootings go on in both Buffalo and in Uvalde, Texas. Not too far from where I used to live. And so, you know, we're going to get into that, have a good discussion. We brought in a federal law enforcement professional to have that discussion. Okay, but before we get into that, we're going to go ahead and throw it to my boy Scott Jones so he can tell you where you can find more about us.
Well, make sure you follow us right here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, the like if you like what you're watching, as well as that bell for further notifications. Catch us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at the Urban Retrospect. We're also on Twitter at Retrospect1619. If you want us to review a product or to catch us, send us an email at the urbanretrospect@gmail.com. And if you want to find out everything about us, previous shows, how you can get on the show, go to www.theurbanretrospect.com. Back at you, Ken.
Thank you very much, my brother. Now, like I said, today we want to bring on a law enforcement professional to have a discussion about these mass shootings that have occurred in America here lately, and not just lately, but just in general. Tonight's guest is my boy, friend of mine, my frat brother, my chapter brother, Mr. Justin Pearson. Let me give you a little bit of background about JP. JP works in federal law enforcement, and he has over 14 years of extensive firearms training experience, including tactical applications in hostile and austere environments. Did I say that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Justin served 4 years of active duty in the U.S. Marine Corps Infantry, including 2 tours of Iraq and 1 tour in Afghanistan. He also served in the Air National Guard as a military police officer, worked as a diplomatic security contractor in Iraq, and spent 2 years as a deputy sheriff for the Shelby County Sheriff's Office in Tennessee. Justin decided to get into firearms instruction and to share his knowledge, skills, and training in a comfortable and safe learning space for new firearms owners. Justin is a native of M-Town, One Town, Funky Town, Memphis, Tennessee, and a graduate of the greatest HBCU known on God's green earth, the Tennessee State University.
Yes, sir.
And he's an avid outdoorsman. All right. With that, everybody, please welcome my brother JP to the show.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Now, JP, we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna ask you some questions, and you know, just relax, sip on your brew. You know, I'm sipping on some bourbon, and let's go ahead and jump into it. All right.
Good to me.
All right. So the first question: can you talk about or tell us exactly what is the Second Amendment and what rights does it cover?
So these amendments came about after the Revolutionary War. So at the time, the mother nation, Britain, was trying to impose their will on the colonies, and part of that meant not having their own military or owning weapons. So the founders thought it was important to include a provision for the new nation that was forming to defend itself from other countries and from its own government if need be. So that's how the Second Amendment came about post-Revolutionary War.
Okay. And what does it ensure? What does the Second Amendment ensure? In short,
it gives states the right to have a militia independent of the national construct of a military, but it also gives the citizens the individual right to have weapons as well, specifically firearms.
all right.
But is it really laid out like that? I feel like it does definitely give the states a militia. That part is no doubt. But the individual right to have a firearm, mind you, I have several firearms, but does it really call out individuals have the right to bear arms?
So keep in mind, again, we're looking at the context of when it was wrote. The individuals had to bring their own firearms to the militia when they needed the militia. So the militia wasn't providing for them. They had to show up with their own provisions. So
Gotcha,
it provide for the individual.
Chicken or the egg, which one came first? You got the gun or you ain't got the gun?
Exactly.
I never thought about it like that, though.
So you keep it in context. Granted, you know, technology has evolved and the society has evolved, but within the context of when it came about, you have to keep that in mind.
So JP, tell us why is it important for everyone to know their rights when it comes to gun laws?
So that they don't end up on the wrong side of the law when it comes to gun laws. There are certain things out there that prevent some people from owning guns once they've violated other laws. Like Ike Turner can't own guns. You know, he was a woman beater. Domestic violence prevents you from being a gun owner. So if you're a wife beater and you own guns or you possess a gun, you could put yourself in a bad situation. So it's important to know that if you're gonna pursue the wife beating path.
I got a follow-up question for that. So, you know, there's a lot of states here down south, like Tennessee's one of them,
Right.
where you don't have to have a permit to buy a gun. So how can you check for someone like an Ike Turner if you don't, you know, you don't have to have a permit to buy a gun?
So you don't have to have a permit to purchase, but you do have to be age 21. And
Okay.
most states, as a gun seller, you have to run a background check.
Okay. So you still have to. So okay, cool.
So
I just want to get
specifically as a Tennessee native, I love Tennessee and how they do it. You can walk in that day and walk out with the gun you want after your background check clears. So you're not just walking in with money saying I want that gun. That owner, that seller has to run a background check on you before they give you possession of that gun.
so even at gun shows too.
Great
Gun
question.
shows,
Great follow.
not necessarily gun shows.
Okay.
Well, and I would like to say, and also just for clarity too, you know, that provision about not needing a license, you know, that's no longer just a Southern thing. That law went to effect here in Ohio.
Yes, sir.
You know, I think earlier this month or last month, that became the law. But in that case, and I know it's not, you know, this is kind of out of order. here, but can you speak to, JP, can you speak to why the importance of still going to get your concealed carry license, even in the states that don't require you to have a license to conceal carry?
So that license gives you the ability to carry in other states sometimes if they have reciprocity with your state. Mostly neighboring states will offer that. So if you have states like Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, they all border each other. If I get a Tennessee permit, I can carry in the bordering states and they will acknowledge that even though I'm not a resident of that state, they'll acknowledge that permit and say I can legally carry in their state, versus not getting the permit and having the ability to legally carry in only your state. As a non-resident, you can't cross state lines and legally carry at that point.
Okay.
Also, getting a permit most of the time requires hours of training. Those hours of training are things that the individual who just goes and purchases a gun won't have if they have the ability to purchase and carry.
Right. I got a question, man. Hey, so on the Second Amendment question that Ken asked, it says militia. Now, let's fast forward to now, 2022.
Right.
As a local in your city, your state, as a local, you got the police, right? And then you got the sheriff department. After that, you got the state troopers, and so on and so on. So what's your opinion on the whole ordeal with the militia part of the Second Amendment?
So
Considering that we got all those layers.
To your state's National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
That's
yeah, exactly. Right.
So the militia would be your state's National Guard. Yep. They answer directly to your state's governor.
Right. Right. See, I live in Florida right now. Our governor, he just got his own militia. He got the National Guard and another group of volunteers, he called them. Armed, a militia. He has a militia that can go anywhere at his calling. And everybody's like, well, we got the National Guard. No, it's a whole nother group. He got that just for him to go to any city in the state of Florida to handle protesters.
How does it, and this is, as you know, this is a Black show. How does that affect us though? Because even though you have these gun laws, the gun laws are strictly enforced on a certain minorities or certain people,
certain segment of society.
But then you have other societies that have that same process. Perfect example, I'll take on Philando Castile in Minnesota. Now he was legally, having a gun. Stated that he had a license, stated that he had it, but it was treated differently. But then you have people like the boy in Uvalde or the guy in New York and Buffalo that wasn't enforcing anything. And so I guess my question to you is, though, even though we have these gun laws, are they fairly enforced?
I think you're asking more so a behavioral question. And it's behavioral on both sides. On one side, I'll say you can't legislate behavior. You can write 1 million laws. That doesn't mean the person that they're written for is going to follow them. And on the other side of that coin, you have the law enforcement officer. He's there to enforce the laws, but you can't legislate or predict his behavior while enforcing the laws.
So why not though?
Because individuals are going to behave and respond differently.
Yeah.
Because like there was
cool as a cool cucumber in a situation, and another person might not be so cool when faced with the same exact situation.
So let me just put it like this. So I'm sorry if I'm going off topic, y'all. So say you got people who live in a certain zip code, the policing is different for them.
Oh no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, all right, cool.
I'm 100% on board with understanding your question. And I'll say that when I was a local, I observed things of that nature.
Okay.
So I know exactly where you're coming from. I've observed it. And unfortunately, in certain zip codes, some people have an immediate access to relief and others don't. So some people might be related to the DA or the judge or
Yeah, that's what I was going to.
chief of police or a lieutenant's nephew or whatever. So when you write them a ticket and they drive off and call home and say, I just got a ticket, so-and-so wrote me a ticket, within 10 minutes, you might get a text or a phone call saying, you got to throw that away. Whereas in other areas, that immediate access for relief isn't there. So they're going to go through the matriculation of the legal process of having to pay that ticket. And if they want to challenge it, paying court fees and other fees, where the other person can make a phone call and their ticket go away.
Yeah.
And that's a minor crime, you know, like a speeding ticket, but you can ratchet it up to other crimes and offenses and they still have the same access.
Yeah. Hey, that walks right into my question, you know, dealing with behavior and the way people act. What should each person know or should exhibit before purchasing a firearm? You know, are there any kind of behaviors or any kind of things they should watch out for?
There should definitely be a level of maturity and understanding of what a firearm can do and does, and the responsibility of owning one and especially carrying one. A firearm can put food on your table, but it can also take lives of persons. So it's a tool. How you use that tool requires a certain level of maturity and understanding.
But to follow up, JP, what one of the things we wanted to get at, even with this question, is I've heard you talk in the past about the things that people need to be able to exhibit. So like you talk about awareness and how to operate the gun. I don't know if they were the 5 safety measures that people should have, but can you speak to those things in terms of what you should have before you pick up or operate a weapon, a gun?
So you should definitely understand the safety rules, you know, treat every weapon as if it was loaded, never point it at anything you do not intend to shoot, kill, or destroy. You know, keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you're ready to fire. It's not gonna go off by accident unless it's El Cheapo, as I like to say. Most well-built brands and firearms, I'm not here to endorse any brands, aren't gonna go off without something coming in contact with that trigger. And then of course, knowing your environment and what you're shooting at, what's beyond your target, what's around your target. So keeping all those things in mind is very important in knowing when you're starting to learn about firearms and firearm safety.
JP, I got a question for you. So,
All right.
what age should you start teaching your children about guns and stuff? You know, what, in your opinion?
Well, it depends on your intent. If your intent is to start taking them on hunting trips with you, I'd say 4 or 5. As soon as they're old enough to be aware of what's going on.
So what about
because it also takes the curiosity away. If you keep guns around your home, they're going to see them. There's going to be curiosity with everything. Just like there's curiosity with the stove, and you say, hey, that's hot, don't touch it.
Right.
But then they do it anyway.
Do
you start teaching them about the gun, it takes the curiosity away and they get an understanding. You can just go show them and make them watch you shoot for a while so that they understand what exactly is going on before you actually put one in their hands.
You had to have that conversation with them as far as like video games and entertainment now about like, you know, because, you know, everybody sees like mostly all the top movies, you see people shooting like John Wick and video games with the shooter games and stuff.
Right.
You have to have that conversation with them and tell them that's not real. Like this is real.
Right.
So
And for all parents and people watching this, please make sure you do secure your firearms. Have a gun safe or put the guns way up high, lock the triggers. We want to make sure we're not advocating that anybody do anything unsafe. Remember, he said safety first and foremost. Back to your show.
All right. So what do you foresee as some of the long-term effects of these new rules that you don't have to, you know, you don't have to have a license to carry your weapon in your state. You know what I'm saying? What do you think gonna be some of the long-term effects of these new rules?
You'll see more people without firearms education carrying.
Yep, exactly.
So you'll see people carrying firearms that can do more than what they're ideally carrying it for.
Mm.
So let's say a good round for self-defense might be 9 mil, 40 or 45. You might see somebody with the old school John Wayne 357 with a 10-inch barrel strapped on their leg just because they can.
Yeah.
Not understanding if they truly use that in a self-defense situation, it might go through the person they're defending themselves from and hit someone behind them or hit other things or property, because you're still responsible for damaging property as well as other people, because you're carrying a round that might be meant for hunting or taking down small game.
Yeah.
So
Good point.
there'll be people who aren't aware of what it is they're actually carrying on their body.
Wow. All right, bro. Thank you, man.
Man.
That's
He
a
without
good
an
point.
AR-15 cast the first stone, you know what I mean? But now, as an owner of an AR-15, how do you feel about other people carrying a gun outside of their caliber, weight class, or whatever you want to call it? Should it be open to anyone to purchase and own an assault rifle?
Yeah, basically, an average person.
Again, I think everything should be available because it's a tool. Just like you got a Phillips head screwdriver and a flathead screwdriver. Every tool has a specific job. Like I said, some are for hunting, put food on the table. Some are for defending yourself from, you know, getting held up, the stick up kid or robbery. And then a weapon like an AR, if you're gonna look at it in a self-defense perspective, that's more so defending yourself from a tyrannical government or something of that nature. I don't foresee the average civilian being in a prolonged gun battle with
Exactly.
other people other than saying, I'm keeping this for protecting me from a tyrannical government,
A government.
something of that nature.
And that shit ain't gonna work.
Right.
That ain't gonna work. Not against the government.
Like I said, each caliber, each weapon, each size has a different
Right.
use.
Right.
So you have to pick the right tool for the right job.
Mhm.
I'm
Well,
not
you know,
gonna pick up
three.
a hammer for a screwdriver.
Three, I would say, you know, this is just my personal opinion on this, and I may have said it to y'all or whatever. When it comes to some of the more restrictive gun laws that people have talked about enacting, you know, like, so to address the question that you just asked, my personal opinion is the only thing that's going to do is keep the average citizen like us from getting the weapons. I think criminals are going to criminal. The job of a criminal is to be a criminal, and criminals don't go by rules anyway. You know, I do believe in some type of sensible gun legislation to be held. So, you know, if it's requiring a certain amount of training before you get it, or, you know, something along those lines, I'm okay with that. But just to flat out ban an AR-15, that doesn't make sense to me. And when people say, well, why do you need one? Because I want one. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't afford a Ferrari, but if I could afford one, I would want one because I want one.
And that's why I say you can't legislate behavior. A criminal is going to criminal.
But you know, I feel like there's still some firearms. Again, and I'm open to it. My dad's a former police. There's different firearms where a MAC-10 or a Uzi, I think there's no place for them. Of course, they're not being manufactured anymore, but you know, there's no place for them really. You know what I mean? Is there really a place for that type of firearm in civil society?
If you want one, that's just my opinion though. If you want one, that's just like, I met a dude when I was living in Texas.
It's just like saying people shouldn't be able to own race cars. Some people are responsible owners. They take it down to the track on the weekend and open it up. I might want a Mac-10 just because I want to take it to the range and open it up on
Great
the
answer.
That is a good answer.
Yeah.
I know a
That's
dude who
good
had a
answer.
street sweeper. His father-in-law gave him a street sweeper. Can you tell me why he needed that?
Mhm.
Other than the fact that he wanted it.
Mhm. It's cool to have. A car cool to have.
How about this?
When you get into the
I'm
wrong
okay with a
hand.
person having one. I'm okay with a person having one, but why don't they register those specific type of guns a little bit differently, maybe?
Mm.
Okay.
Those laws
A good
already
point.
exist. Those laws already exist.
Do
So
they?
then
I
it
don't
goes
know.
back to what, like you said, enforcing the laws that we already had.
I didn't know that law was on the books for that.
I
But
thought
Well, how
I
come they
thought-
just don't
hey,
enforce
JP,
them then?
It's a fully
I thought they
automatic
expired,
firearm.
JP.
It's already registered. You have to get a tax stamp to purchase a fully automatic firearm or short barrel rifle and other certain weapons. So,
Oh, so you can get a fully automatic firearm? You can get one, JP?
oh yeah, you can get one. You can get whatever you can afford as long as you can pay the tax stamp for it.
Really? Wow. Okay. I didn't know that, bro.
Now those laws are different in different states, though, correct? Or are they are the laws you just stated federal?
Say again.
Are those laws are for the specific states, or those the laws you just stated, like the tax stamp and all that, federal?
That's every state, but
Okay.
your tax stamp will limit you to the state you live in. So if I get a item that requires a tax stamp in the state of Mississippi, I can only have it in Mississippi. There's a separate form I have to fill out if I'm going to travel out of my state with that item, because it is a registered item with the ATF,
Mhm.
and they want to know where that item is located.
Mhm.
do you have a preferable silencer that you recommend?
Again, I'm not here to advocate for any brands, but I am a suppressor owner. Yes, I am. I'm
Nice.
a short barrel rifle owner, and they're
Nice.
both registered with tax stamps.
Mhm.
And we
Okay,
need to go
okay.
shoot, man. We need to go shoot.
Exactly.
The laws and the registrations already exist. A lot of people who push for more aren't educated on what already exists,
That's true.
or they're not seeking the education. They're the uninformed, and they're panicking when they see certain things happen.
Well, okay, based on that comment, what law you see that needs to be changed to what the current climate of society right now?
So
Based on what you just said.
right now, 18 is the age to purchase a rifle, whether it's a
Right.
shotgun, AR, AK-47, any rifle, age of 18.
Right.
If I had training and I wanted to, I could go out and buy a 50 cal long gun at the age of 18. A 50 cal long gun can do some serious damage
Yes, sir. Yes,
in the
sir.
wrong hands.
Mhm.
But the 18-year-old can buy one. Granted, I don't think they
Wow.
have the money for it. You know, those are gonna run you 3 G's plus.
Mhm.
On the low end, 3 G's, maybe 2.
Mhm.
But that'll do more damage than a 9mm pistol, which requires you to be the age of 21.
Wow. Good point. Good point.
So maybe adjusting the age of purchasing a rifle, if a rifle is the weapon of choice in a lot of these situations to get media
are.
attention,
Mhm.
then I would say maybe adjust the rifle minimum age.
Right now, currently 18.
Or,
And one suggestion 21.
require a cosigner.
Ooh. Yeah. But they say at 18 I'm an adult though. So should I be required a cosigner?
Well,
They won't give you a loan at 18 without a cosigner.
Is that good point?
you can't buy a drink at 18 years old.
Mhm.
Exactly.
You can't.
So if they require a cosigner for other things, if you still want this rifle, we're gonna get you a cosigner who's also liable.
Good point. I like that.
Okay.
That'll stop a lot of them shenanigans.
Yeah, it will. It will.
Since the climate has changed, especially the Uvalde, Sandy Hook, the plate, the one Stony, the one in Miami, outside Miami.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on teachers having handguns or having guns in the classroom?
Well, if you want to go down that road, you're gonna have to take up more of their free time. Teachers have to go to in-service every year to learn how to be better professional teachers. They're gonna need in-service to learn how to be professional shooters. If that's the route your school system decides to take, you're gonna have to require them to take hours of training.
Yep.
Hours.
Yep.
Several hours of training.
Yes, sir.
Also too, I don't know if you had to do a mental aspect or do some de-escalation, because you might have, like a case of a teacher might get upset with a student.
Exactly. So
How are they supposed to handle that?
unless you're willing to pay for more hours and hours of training for these teachers, I think having the proper protection personnel in the building would be the better route to go.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%.
I disagree with you.
Hey.
Well, I'm kind of on the fence
Go
on
ahead.
that. And this is the reason why I disagree, because in the one in Florida that
Florida,
happened, the dude ran.
I said proper, not retired on the job.
Exactly. Man, thank you,
Time out,
man.
so there's plenty-
But you had the police in Uvalde that didn't even go in.
Everybody got their coworker that show up, clock in and clock out.
Yes, sir.
It don't mean he worked that day, but he was there.
Hey, and when they went
that's
into the
very
school in
professional.
Florida, he got scared. He got scared when they started shooting
Yeah,
him
but
back.
also too, the dynamic too is that, like, I was watching and they had this kid, they were showing this kid in Minnesota about how they had resource officers, and the thing is they were using these resource officers as basically policing the school, and they wasn't really protecting the students. They were basically harassing some of the minority students. And then when a situation happened, and so my whole thing is it's a slippery slope about putting the right personnel, because like anyway, like I go back to like in Buffalo, you had an armed security guard there. If a dude coming into school, he got the armor on, what I'm saying? They shot him, the bullet bounced off of him. So who's to say if a dude really wants to go in there, he strapped enough, get all the tactical gear, what a police officer with a 9mm gonna do?
So you said a teacher gonna do it then?
Nah, I don't believe a teacher should have a
Okay,
gun.
so why not have a sheriff for ROs?
Well, I'm just saying it's not gonna guarantee, like,
So what do you want? You want the parent in there with an assault
No,
rifle?
man. No,
Having
I
that
think it's just a
uniformed
talking
officer
point.
there at a minimum before
Thank
they
you.
engage. If they follow their training, they're gonna get on the radio and let somebody else know that they have a situation.
Exactly.
There'll be more help on the way.
That dude from Buffalo saved a lot of lives when he shot back at that dude, man. A lot of people got away by him shooting at that guy. Yes, he got killed, but he shot at that guy, dude. Yes, he had armor on, but people got away while he was shooting at that guy, man. Come on, man.
Well,
Not to mention, we don't need a teacher getting lazy and leave the firearm unsecured
I agree
somewhere.
with you on that.
Yeah.
Then the kids
Yeah,
pick up the firearm, you know what I mean? Now the whole school on lockdown because we got a gun missing, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
What do you do
Exactly.
when the teacher, what do you do when the teacher get the gun took by that 18-year-old with a deep voice? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I worked at a school,
Go ahead. Tell me.
in city school at that, as a school resource officer, before I made the transition to the federal side.
Mhm.
I was passionate about what I did. I made sure the kids were safe from each other, but I also made sure the kids were safe from the outside world.
Thank you. Thank you, bro.
In an inner city environment, you got to protect them from both. Because you're going to have gang fights. They're going to fight each other. They're going to call their mama, their daddy, their big cousin, little cousin, and everybody else in between to come up there and beat up children.
Yeah.
I got to protect them from the public as well as each other.
Mhm.
Because when they get to jumping each other, they'll beat each other to death if you let them.
Yeah.
It'll be shit on one.
Yeah. Now I agree with that, but I don't agree with having certain.
They're going to bring weapons to school as well.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now, I agree with what you
I had
just stated.
situations where a young lady came to school 7 in the morning, right after breakfast. She brought some pepper spray to school.
Yeah.
she maced the girl and then started putting them hands on her.
Oh,
So she brought the weapon to school to use it to get the upper hand. So if they want to do it, they're gonna do it.
Mhm.
But as a school resource officer, you gotta be willing to jump in there,
yeah.
whether it's kid on kid or kid on public or 10 on 1 or just you and one other officer. You gotta be willing to deal with whatever's presented to you.
I'll take that pepper spray over assault rifle, bro.
Well, you know, it listening to you, JP, talk, it sound without the two key things when it comes to this subject and this particular question that I heard you kind of foot stomp are, number one, proper training and somebody who gives a damn about their job. You know, those are the two things, because Wes, I agree with you that doesn't necessarily solve the problem, but I don't think we don't live in a society, whether we're talking about shootings, whether we're talking about engineering some other problem, where anything is the be all end all solution to anything.
Right,
it's about taking, a step to eliminate an issue and to do it in a responsible way. And so, like Pearson said, if that officer in Buffalo, by even just shooting and distracting, he lost his life, but what lives, how many lives did he actually save?
Real
like,
hero.
Like you've been on here lately. Hey man, if somebody got to drop on you, they got to drop on you. Right? Yeah. So that might not save your life, but you can still save others' lives.
Exactly.
So I think that's the bigger picture. So that's just my
and don't damn the girl with the pepper spray. She saw a problem that she couldn't overcome, and she showed some resourcefulness.
Yeah, exactly. She adapted and overcome. Yeah,
she knew she couldn't. She knew she couldn't beat Cheryl straight up. She knew Cheryl had
Big Shirley.
Had 20 pounds on it.
She had 20 pounds on it. So
well,
what should do?
My question is, so we don't have to even get to the level of teachers being armed with guns. Mm-hmm. How do you feel that we can limit the number of mass shootings that occurs in these schools? Especially, we already talked about Uvalde, we talked about Columbine.
Right.
How do you think we can limit these mass shootings?
Again, it boils down to behavior, conflict management at an early age. Learning how to deal with disappointment at an early age.
Yes.
Conflict management early as an elective, as part of the curriculum. Early.
Stop giving everybody a trophy. Everybody don't win.
Yeah.
Yep. Right.
Hey,
participation.
Growing up outside Memphis, everybody used to check each other, man. We used to go.
Oh yeah.
See, that right there prepare, even though that shit hard, but that prepare you for something, dog.
And honestly, when you have some of
the truth,
of these,
I be getting kid ready all the time. I never stop checking.
Even in daycare, I would even start teaching how to deal with disappointment and the emotions that go with it.
Thank you, dog. Thank you.
You're not gonna always get animal crackers when you want them, or a bottle, or whatever. Start early teaching people how to deal with conflict management and disappointment.
It sounds like some fathers need to be in place. That's what it sounds like.
I give you that.
Adults need to be in place.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
Because they see a lot of this in their kids early on. It doesn't just start when they go up in their schools starting to shoot up the schools. It starts early on. So are they offering counseling for these kids that are going in here?
Right.
And that's something that they need to do early on.
Before I point the blame at society and the desensitization you might get from video games or movies and all of that, it's at the home and the school, conflict management and understanding disappointment.
Yes, sir. Hey, my daughter was getting bullied on the bus, but she was getting checked on the bus. And my ex-wife's like, really? You getting checked on the bus? You know who your daddy is? I was like, wow. And that's real talk. Because dog, when I walk into the house, when I go back home for a cookout or anything, they going in on you, though. You gotta be
You
ready.
gotta know how to get them.
Exactly. Thank you,
You gotta
Scott.
get them.
You gotta get them before they
Gotta
get
be able to get them.
That's
They
how
know
it is.
Scott gonna get them.
As
Thank
you
you.
used to say, learning how to roll with the punches. And
Exactly.
throw.
There you go. There you go. There you go. That's all I want to say. Right there.
I think it should be mandatory for all kids to catch an ass whoop.
At least one. At least one does.
Yeah, that's the truth.
That's true. I feel you.
When you ain't never lost, you don't know how to act.
Yeah, you undefeated. Yeah, I feel you. I agree with that.
I'm the middle child of 7, and my sisters was hard. I mean, you know,
Yeah, I agree with you, dog.
I tell you what.
But you know what? Well, you said one thing though, Scott, about mental health, because one thing since the 80s, a lot of mental health societies have basically gone away, and actually mental health has been treated like a luxury now because you have to afford a psychiatrist. You have to afford a person to talk to. You know what I'm saying? People don't want to talk about that, but it's a luxury to do that
Well,
now.
that's the legislative issue. I say that's holding your elected officials accountable and telling them more money to go towards that.
Yes, sir.
I agree.
We always said black people don't go see psychiatrists, but now we need them. We need them.
Black people deal with more trauma in this country than anybody else.
But we're not going up
Other than
shooting
the
up no
Indians.
schools though.
Growing up in the 80s and 90s, there used to be inpatient facilities around, a lot, and now you don't see that as much anymore.
No, you don't.
Bolivar, Tennessee. The whole city.
Yeah, we had one in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's a funding thing.
All right. So just a quick question. Should felons be allowed to carry weapons after they serve their time?
That's a good question.
Damn
What
good.
they went in for.
Well, after a process, they can restore their voting rights. I think there should be a process to restore their right to defend themselves.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: what about in your home as a felon? I can have a gun if I'm a felon. Can I have a gun in my house? But once I leave that place, I can't have one. That's what I'm saying. Should I be able to have a right to defend my family as a felon?
Right. As of right now, you can't.
Exactly.
That's why I said there's a process to restore your voting rights. There should be a process to restore your rights to defend yourself.
Right. I think they should. I think as a felon, you should. Yeah.
Not if you were in jail for domestic violence though. You're not gonna, why
No,
should you have a gun in
That's
your
why I
home?
said there should be a process.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They should look at it, evaluate what's going on, just see how your behavior is, your state of mind, how you're handling adjusting to life after being a felon or whatever.
Right.
And to put you through some classes, some counseling, some firearms education as well. And then say, hey, he's completed this much training, this much counseling. He's restored his right.
He's not from Alabama. You know,
I'm not a
that
Hey,
felon.
look, AJP, for clarity, following up on P's question, I know he just asked you, if you're a felon, you're out of jail, can you have a gun at home? For clarity for any of our viewers, if you are a felon and you don't own a gun, but let's say you're married to a licensed gun owner.
Oh yeah, good question.
Is that allowable, or is that felon not allowed to even live in a house where the weapon is?
To my understanding, it has to be reported at that point.
Okay.
Good
And
question.
it might be advised that they don't even own one.
Wow. That's
Okay.
big.
That's big. That's why I wanted to ask that question.
So know who you love.
Exactly.
Because you don't never know. Because like at the end of the day, like say something happens.
That's true.
Like say kids get into it, stuff happen, police come to the house, the guy's talking, sees a gun, like okay.
So the
person that
trouble
owns
would
the gun
come
is not
in,
there.
you say, that's my wife's gun, but you're home alone with the gun and your wife not home.
Exactly.
Good point.
That's the point I was getting to, JP.
It becomes a question of, do you have the resources to afford the attorney that can argue that for you?
All right, my question to you, JP, is should a Black person join the NRA?
I think you should align yourself with whatever group speaks to your beliefs.
Okay.
The
All right.
NRA isn't the only group that lobbies for gun rights. And I think if gun ownership and gun rights is your goal, you should align yourself with whatever group presents that and gets the outcome you desire.
Right. But okay, consider what went on in Minnesota with the NRA and other shootings. They do not seem to vouch for Black gun owners. What's your opinion on that? For example,
there are
what
times
about-
in history when they were vocal about our gun ownership.
they were. Yep.
There are times in history where they're
Yep.
silent.
Yep.
I think ideally you want your organization to not be race oriented, but goal oriented. If the goal is for all the people to have equal access and equal rights to gun ownership, then you have to be equal across the board, no matter what the cost or situation is.
As a follow-up to P's question, what organizations do you feel is good to join, especially for African Americans?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you don't feel the NRA is right for you and your beliefs, the USCCA is out there, which is the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. They're a growing and new organization, but under the umbrella of the USCCA is NAGA, the National Association of African American Gun Owners.
Hey, so the U.S. Concealed Carry, is that one lobbyists as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right. What about, we were talking about the small militias earlier. Do you feel that they pose a threat to the general public?
In some instances, yes.
Mhm.
In some instances, yes. I think there are people and organizations with extreme views on all sides of politics and personal beliefs. And when those extreme views begin to infringe on other people's basic rights to exist or be or have a different opinion than you, then you're a threat to the public and society.
Mhm.
And I would say that goes back to learning as a child how to deal with disappointment. People aren't going to always agree with you or have the same opinion or feeling that you have about any specific thing. And if you decide to hate me because I like lasagna and you don't, just for example, then that becomes an issue. Just because I like a food you don't like, or I shop somewhere you don't like, or I'm a race, or whatever it may be, when your views and your group's views start to infringe on my right to just be, then yes, you're definitely an issue for society.
Right.
Biggest problem facing America surrounding guns and gun laws. What do you feel they are?
The biggest problem, I would say education.
Yeah, definitely.
Education, and as I stated before, there's plenty of laws in existence already. If they're enforced and you add an education component to that enforcement, I think we'd be in a better place.
So, hey, growing up, born and raised,
the education isn't mandatory.
Yeah.
At this moment.
All right, JP, I got one more question for you about really, you just said that the biggest problem facing America around surrounding guns and gun laws is education. When it comes to the actual education and training specifically, how much time should the average gun owner be spending actually training and training how to use their weapon, operate it appropriately. So how much time should they be spending at the gun range and cleaning or anything like that?
So some would say 10 hours a day. Some would say 10 hours a month.
Dang.
So to find a happy medium, I would say at a minimum, about 30 minutes a day to understanding. If you're going to be carrying, I would say 15 to 30 minutes a day to just practicing drawing that weapon and dry fire training would be good, but might not be realistic to the citizen with a full family and other things to juggle in life. So at a minimum, going to the range and actually doing live fire should be at least 2 hours every 2 weeks. So that could be an hour a week or 2 hours in 2 weeks.
Right.
So at least twice a month, you're actually shooting live ammunition. And prior to that, you're practicing loading, unloading, you're keeping it clean after firing, things of that nature. So that would put you around maybe 5 to 6 hours a month.
Okay.
To continuing your firearms education. That's after you've had the handgun carry class or your permit class and things of that nature.
Okay.
Your training should be continuous. It doesn't stop after you pass the class to get the permit or things of that nature.
Which most Americans will do.
What about in like mental health type of things? Because I'm always thinking like you have this good. Sometimes people, well, I guess you can't, like you said, you can't legislate behavior.
Well,
but
people aren't going to self-report either as they're becoming unraveled. So
Right.
that becomes an issue of the people around you observing and knowing, well, he's a gun owner, but he's not himself lately. Or he had a major setback that might trigger him in a certain way or not. So that becomes an issue of those around you observing you and saying, maybe it's time for you to, let me hold your guns, or let's get some help, let's do this. Just like when you're at the bar with a friend and he's gonna drink too much and start a fight, you normally cut him off. It would be the same thing with a friend that's a gun owner that's gone through a drastic mental health altering situation.
Thank you, my brother, for coming on the show. When we started discussing the possibility of having this topic, I immediately thought of you due to the conversations that we've had about guns, gun laws, and really even the safety around carrying and the training around carrying. So, I thank you for being a willing participant. I know you've had 3 long days here. You know what I'm saying? So we really, really, really appreciate you for being on the show. Can you tell us before we go though, like what I know that you have your gun training courses that you have planned. What are you looking to do in the future that we should just tell people to look out for? And if you have any social media tags that you would want us to highlight, please let us know.
So when I retire from this federal law enforcement career, I'm going to have a firearms training academy as well as a outdoor recreation nonprofit. Inside Out Adventure Fit will be the outdoor recreation nonprofit. You can find it on Instagram, Inside Out Adventure Fit, and we'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. All right. So, again, thank you to all of the viewers for checking us out. Hope you've really enjoyed the show. I hope you've also gotten some education about not only what the Second Amendment means and how it comes into play in this country, but then what your rights are and the things that you should have on your mind when you are considering not only owning a firearm, but also carrying and operating a firearm. So, please be smart about everything that you do. Remember that, there are certain responsibilities that come with not only owning a gun, but also carrying that weapon. Before we get out of here, Scott Jones, give the people our contacts one more again in case they forgot it at the front.
Well, if you all like the show that you are currently watching, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscription button, and hit the bell for further notifications. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at the Urban Retrospect. We're also on Twitter at Retrospect 1619. If you want us to review a product or have any questions for us, shoot us an email at the urbanretrospect@gmail.com. And to find everything that's past shows, a little bit more about us, how you can be on the show, and a lot more, go to www.theurbanretrospect.com. Appreciate it.
All right. And that's the end of today's show. So everybody, we hope that everybody continues to go out there, be safe. And as always, we wish you peace, love, and retrospect. Tell them what to do, 3.